All right, everybody, welcome to an episode of Golf WRX Radio. We kind of do these specials, especially around launch time, because I've got a special guest with me today, Brian Williams of Callaway Golf. Brian, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. And we're excited because it is launch time, and we've got brand new product from Callaway, a ton of exciting stuff. I know it's always exciting every year. Kind of we wait around seeing, all right, what's Callaway going to do, and when are we get the spy shots out on tour, and when's this stuff hitting the USGA conforming list, and now we're finally to the point where we're getting into the details. We're able to reveal all kind of the secret sauce of the stuff we're seeing on tour. But my first question is kind of goes along with that. Like, with Elyte, you guys have been working on this for a while. This isn't just a 1 year thing where you guys are working on it. When you guys kind of set out and you're building kind of the next driver like this, do you guys have like goals set in mind, or kind of what's the process of getting to the point of a production piece, like from the start to here? Is it kind of like you set goals, or is it you look at previous performance of some other drivers and then you say, well, we want to do this a little different, or how do you guys do that?
I feel like you touched on everything there. It's all of that. So the first thing we talked about is like kind of just multi-year research paths. And so we've got teams that are always out kind of independent of specific goal setting for a product, looking at how to make different things differentiated and better, right? We talk a lot about DSPD and demonstrably superior, pleasingly different. So how can we do something that we think will give us a performance advantage? How do we do something that we think will give players and consumers a reason to want to try our products? And so some of those research paths have led into this product. There's been research around aerodynamics, carbon fiber and composites, and obviously AI. And so some of those things are happening kind of independent of what do we want to do for that next mainline product. And then they start to take form. And in this case, it's where you mentioned, like, how do you look at past products or specific goals that you want? And in the case of Elyte, we reflected on where we were when we finished smoke development. It was just over a year ago. We had finished development on Paradigm AI Smoke, and we liked what we had. We knew we had a really balanced product in the middle of the market. The Smoke Max, specifically as our core driver, was pretty fast, pretty long, pretty consistent. It felt like a great package. We had Triple Diamond as a very fast, low-speed driver, more forgiving than it had been in the past. We had our Smoke Max D, which was a nice, easy to turn over driver, a little more forgiving. So we liked the lineup, but, we reflected on it and said, okay, well, and then again, you start to see competitive launches, and we saw 10K stories coming out about forgiveness. And we were talking about forgiveness from the face, a different position, one we very much believe in. But we looked at that line and said, where do we have deficiencies and where do we have gaps? And the challenge we had from Chip Brewer, our CEO, was, we're not industry leading in speed in our core market. It's a balanced driver. It's very good. It was good enough to be the number one driver in the market this year, right? So it's a good product.
Yeah.
But that's where this conversation started internally at Callaway about how do we go from good to great, from great to elite. And in these different areas, we looked and we said, we might have elite speed in the Triple Diamond, but there's others that are telling forgiveness stories. We might have great forgiveness or repeatability in the core, but we don't have elite forgiveness. We're not demonstrably superior to these other products. So the goal for us was very clear on Elyte. If we wanted to have a product that didn't have trade-offs, that's where some of the naming came from.
Yep.
An Elyte product was something that we said it would have no weaknesses. It wasn't going to be about trade-offs. We were going to try to be industry leading in both speed and forgiveness. And so that's where some of these paths started to take shape, where we said we have to have more speed, but we can't sacrifice MOI or CG position. We want to be low spin. And we want to lean into our forgiveness from our face. We want to do better than we have in the past with our AI and modeling tools on helping golfers with downrange dispersion. So again, it's all of those things building up for us to have a very clear heading of what we wanted to do on the product. And then we started picking and choosing the technologies that had been developed and looking at how they could come together and deliver those kinds of outcomes.
Yeah. And then that's interesting because it's funny you say, like, like you guys didn't consider yourself kind of a leader in the speed category in some of the drivers. And I felt like, with kind of micro deflections last year with AI Smoke, like I felt a lot of people, who tried the Callaway drivers, especially last year's AI Smoke, that was one of the big things they walked away with, was saying how good the ball speed was for their swing, and, noticing that those mishits carried some more ball speed, and, the spin was different. So it's interesting that, I think from the outside, we all look in and say, wow, that was a really fast driver and it was really long, and you guys look at it and go, well, it was okay. Like we could definitely do a little bit better. Like it was okay.
It's part of that mentality for us, right? One thing we say around the building, it's something that Chip brought into Callaway, was humble and hungry.
Yep.
And so it's just, we're always looking to get better. And we had this discussion, again, part of kind of our brand identity here on Elyte, but we said, like, good's never good enough. And yeah, we knew we had a good product. We felt good about our chances. We saw it validated in market share this year, but we also, from our experience, knew we could be better. And so that's where we told the team, hey, it's a high bar, but how do you get more speed without trade-offs? We don't want the trade-offs. We don't want to raise CP. We don't want higher spin. We don't want to go smaller profile and less forgiving. So you got to deliver us, ball speed with forgiveness, and that's very, very hard to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I think a lot of people, when you look from the outside in, and you don't, I'm fortunate enough where I get to talk to people like you, fairly frequently throughout the year, and it's amazing of when you really look at it and you start, hearing what goes into these drivers, that there are so many levers and there's so many things that you're like, well, we could do this and make it crazy forgiving and whatever, but then we've got really high spin and we'll lose some ball speed and kind of the opposite, and the levers aren't independent necessarily. When you pull one, some other ones move, and that's got to be, I mean, the biggest challenge is figuring out how you can kind of make those small changes, but they make some differences, and the levers don't all fluctuate and get out of whack. So it's pretty cool to hear that, because like I said, I'm fortunate enough to be able to hear that, but you to explain it, I think a lot of people it can open their eyes to, I mean, you can't necessarily make a driver insanely different year to year. You can make improvements and changes, but it's not going to be a night and day difference from 1 year driver to the next year. It's just, it's too hard to do.
Yeah. And I mean, that's quite right. I think that's why you don't see, I think that's why this pursuit of a product that's, I mean, not just balanced. Like, balanced is kind of the wrong way for me to even think about this now. I'm thinking about, like, balance now is indicating we are making those trade-offs, and the task we gave to the team was we don't want to make those trade-offs. We don't want balance like there always has been in golf. We want you to figure out how to get us improvements in both areas. And I think we felt bullish because of what we'd seen with our work in the AI and modeling space. And we thought, like, this is something that's real. We're seeing different results that don't have to do with center of gravity and moment of inertia and head shape. And those have always been those traditional levers that you mentioned that you pull in golf to make a golf club do something different. We were seeing with AI, we can get forgiveness, and maybe we don't have to pull those levers. And if we just focus on getting faster, more consistent, more precise, maybe we can also get more forgiving. And that's what we've seen has come to pass here over this past year of development, and something we're quite excited about.
Yeah, definitely. And let's jump into it. I mean, you talked about AI. We talked about the face a little bit already, but AI, we heard about that with the past couple drivers that, AI face technology has been a big thing at Callaway. And then last year we kind of got into micro deflections and how that can help with, the straightness of the ball flight, spin consistency, speed, all that. And we've kind of taken that a step further with Elyte now. So Paradigm AI Smoke I remember they had the cool little face tape with all the little dots on it, that you could kind of show the spots. And now we've kind of taken that and just put it on steroids, right? Kind of what's going on new with the face? Because it's similar terminology, but new design, new technology in there.
There's a lot going on under the hood. So AI 10x face, and we talked about, there's really two things when we talk about what does 10x mean. We're talking about 10 times the control points. Happy accident, we also had about 10 times more player swings that have come in through all of our kind of data collection avenues. So continuing to refine our models on swing codes and player deliveries, it's still a huge part of the equation. But really the story is in what we've done in the face. So 10 times control points. What it means is that we've gone really deep in our design tools. And what we had before was we had about 1,500 control points, which were discrete locations that our designers would map out on a face and allow AI to go use and morph. It allowed the face to change topography and change thick to thin. That sounds like a lot of points, but over the span of a face, what it's allowing for is allowing for our designs to kind of blend within those 1,500 points. And so what happens in manufacturing is you get something that's very close to what AI told you to do, but not exactly what AI told you to do. And another one of the things that was very good. It showed us a signal that led to very consistent performance from AI smoke. But our engineering team really said we need to keep going deeper. We need to have full control over our face so that we fully harness the optimized outcome of AI, and it goes precisely into CAD. There's no blending, there's no designer interaction to smooth surfaces. We make exactly what the optimizer has given us as an optimal solution. And to me, that sounded like, okay, right? Like, does that really matter? Does going from 1,500 control points to 25,000 control points matter to a golfer? I wasn't sure, to be honest with you, at the start, but I had the team go chase it. And the very first prototype comes in, and we have improved downrange dispersion. And we haven't fundamentally changed CG location. We haven't fundamentally changed MOI. So how do we get better dispersion if we're not moving those levers that you normally would trade off to get more forgiveness? It's coming from the face. And it was the team showing me this matters, like having a precise control and not leaving anything to chance or anything to guesswork or allowing things to smooth out. Like it's that message of good is not good enough. We needed to be excellent. We needed to have precise control and complete control over the face. And then we saw that there is a value to a consumer from it. So, and it really is the perfect complement to speed. We'll talk about speed here, I'm sure, in a second. But when we were adding speed to the equation, and we saw it coming from what we did on our head shape and our composite materials, we saw more speed and low spin. Again, I thought like there's going to be a trade-off. There's going to be more dispersion because if we have golfers swinging it faster and we get off center, we're going to see wider dispersion. That's the trade that's always been there.
Yep.
And so when I saw this prototype come in, better dispersion than smoke, I knew there's an assignable reason, and it's micro deflections. They're real. They're doing something off center to adjust launch trajectory and spin that's allowing for better dispersion. There's no other explanation that I can come up with. So that's where we were thinking like it does matter to go deeper in this space, and super excited about what the team did. So it's just a much more powerful face, and we're getting even more out of what we get on the design tool. So a huge differentiator for us, compared to what others are doing in pursuit of dispersion or forgiveness out there in the industry.
Yeah, it definitely is a different kind of idea what you hear. But the other thing that's interesting is because I think when we first saw AI, this AI face, and we kind of talked about it last year with AI smoke, it was kind of like, well, okay, well, where do you go? But now, like you just kind of explained it, where the more shots you guys get in, especially real player shots, and you're able to analyze those and see that data, that even now, like, 2025 isn't the end. It isn't like, well, we've hit the limit, like that's it. Because the same thing, you're going to get more and more data coming in that's just going to kind of add to that equation and change what you can do going forward. So I feel it's one of those things where it'll always be evolving in a sense, because as you get more data and more things, you'll be able to kind of still slowly modify things to make it work for what you're still finding out year after year after year.
Exactly. Keep looking for where do we need data to make iterative decisions, to do testing, whether physical or virtual. Those will be the applications, right? So I probably won't come to you next year and say we have 50,000 control points, but we will have some new things that we're looking at on how we use it to continually improve and refine our models for sure.
Yeah. And then, you mentioned speed, and I know aerodynamics. It feels like drivers sometimes you feel like, oh, there was a few years where aerodynamics was a big thing, and we saw some wild things on drivers. We saw some other, some interesting shapes and stuff. But it seems like, we're starting to get back into aero, and I think it sounds like companies like Callaway are starting to kind of understand a little bit more of where the kind of the advancements can be made, and they don't have to be a crazy wild shape. They don't have to have weird stuff all over the head. Like there are ways around finding speed with shaping while still making it look like a driver. Without making it look like something out of this world. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the speed of the Elyte line.
I couldn't have said that any better myself, right? I mean, finding speed in golf without the trade-offs that you don't want to make is hard. And so, you normally get a couple of cycles, right, in development, depending on a company's development timeline. You get 3 or 4 prototype iterations. We go overseas for the tools and the parts. They take a few months. So the learnings are few and far between. And a lot of times, if you're pursuing head speed, you go backwards just as easily as you go forwards, right? I mean, everybody's in a pretty good spot. So it's these details that matter now. If we're just using aerodynamic tools, they tell us to make the head smaller, right? Yeah. So we can definitely get much faster, but we get smaller. And then you have some compromise to MOI and forgiveness. That's the classic trade-off, or CG location. So there isn't a clean solver, and it's really the team's understanding of aerodynamics, and it's the tools that we use. We have some very powerful fluid dynamics tools that we use. The club team and the ball team worked in partnership on this one to kind of model the opportunities. It showed us where we had more turbulence than we wanted. We had turbulence kind of behind the heel and behind the shaft in the downswing. We looked at the specific places in the downswing where we had more turbulence than we wanted, and one of the big ones is, really it's that final kind of 3 feet of closure is where we see as the club's angling down through the swing. That's where we get the turbulence that we don't want. So it told us, where to go look. But from there, we had the team have to look at refinement of shapes, and we had to go deep on prototyping. And the thing that really enabled us to do this was 3D printing, additive manufacturing. You've heard it around the industry a little bit, but I think we're leaders in the space in terms of titanium printing. And so we've made investments in some very high tech some high tech equipment, and we have a 3D titanium printing capability now in house, and we're able to use that to do print 4 prototypes at a time in a matter of weeks, not months. And so it let our engineers do lots of trial and error, lots of learnings of what made things better, what made things worse, to try to pursue head speed without giving up on MOI and without raising CG. And so we came up with a new shape that, to your point, is subtly different. If you look close, you'll see a lower profile heel section, and you'll see a little deeper ribbon. We've pulled that head section out. It's a little bit raised, and it's a little bit deeper, which is, it's good for aerodynamics, but it would, in and of itself, raise CG, which is something we didn't want to do. But we had an answer for that in our composites division. So we were able to get a shape that, to our team, feels like 5 or 6 years worth of improvements on aerodynamics, because we could do that many prototypes. And that's something we haven't been able to do before, and is going to help us just continue to make better and better products.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because when you think aerodynamics, I think everybody thinks like a car and it just drives straight through the wind. And when it's a golf club, it's really a unique kind of way it flows through the air. It's not just straight on, at the face, because it's coming around your body and down. And like you said, the acceleration points at its fastest are kind of right at impact. So it's also kind of got to be interesting where you're not just taking a head and setting it in a wind tunnel and saying like, oh, okay, there you go. It's dynamic and moving, and all those things probably play an effect on what goes fast and what doesn't go fast.
Exactly right. So we had to use those tools to look for the opportunities, and then we had to use prototyping to solve for them, and then we used testing, and we use, again, both virtual modeling, and we use player tests. So we have a biomechanics lab now at our test center, and we were able to bring in some of our elite amateur players throughout the season and test these prototypes. And we have camera systems in there that catch head speed. So we have this infrared camera. And so you could see players picking up speed. And that's when we were going like, okay, this is testing well. But the proof for us was not just about speed for elite players, right? We didn't want, okay, so we got a guy who swings 120 and now he's 121. Well, that's huge. That'll give him an advantage. But what about the people we're selling to who swing drivers at 70, 80, 90 miles an hour? So we were able to go kind of outside and use a consumer panel to bring them in and test as well. And what we saw was encouraging, consistent speed. So you'll see in our claims materials that will have a head speed claim of something like up to 1.2, 1.3 miles an hour of head speed. But that's about 1 out of 5 golfers saw something better than that. But what you won't see, but what's truly there, is that there's an average gain of 0.7 miles an hour for all these players. Again, outside testers, men and women, young and old, high index, low index. We had people that were hitting driver 150, 180, 210, right? So not long hitters, and they're seeing head speed gains as well. So it's one of those things that for us was very encouraging, that we were making it faster for all players. All players will benefit from more head speed. And so that's where we kind of knew we had something special on the speed side, and combining that with an AI 10x face and micro deflections, we're able to elevate our game in both speed and forgiveness. Pretty good stuff.
Yeah, and you also mentioned, a little bit of kind of composite, some new composites and new materials in the head. And, I think in golf, we're all every year we hear launches and there's carbon fiber and more carbon and da-da-da-da. And it looks like, you guys have gone a little different direction with the material with this generation Elite. What is kind of new when you look at the carbon that's in, these Elite drivers?
And it is kind of the linchpin in the construction because, as I mentioned, the shape that we came up with, if we were using our existing carbon fiber system, would have raised our CG and raised our spin.
Mm.
And for us, that was a non-starter. We really want to keep our core offerings low spin. It's just generating, speed, more distance. Honestly, it's part of our recipe for more forgiveness as well. So the key difference, so thermo-forged carbon, it's an aerospace precision molding process, and the precision molding is really the key there. Our prior system, you would have parts that would come out as a thermoset process. You'd mold the carbon fiber, and it would require some manual working. It would require some sanding. You'd have some pinholes to fill. You'd have finishing that went on top, and so you'd see some variation in the exact precision of that part. And what we had to do in terms of a manufacturing system was basically bond it over a titanium chassis and sand the edges off.
Oh,
And so good. It was lightweight, it was strong, it did what it was supposed to do, but not precise enough to really wrap in a precise way. And so we went to the thermoforged carbon system because it allowed us to have a molded part that came out of a machine that was done. There was no touching it, every part precisely the same. And it allowed us to wrap the edge over that skirt in a different way. It's subtle, you have to look close. But if you look at a cross section of our part, you see we've displaced a whole bunch of titanium that would have been there to kind of be a joint for us to bond and sand against. And so what it let us do is actually lower our center of gravity. Even as visually we raise that ribbon, we displace more titanium with carbon fiber because we can wrap all the way around the perimeter in a precise way and not have to do any sanding or kind of human interaction. So let us lower CG and lower spin, even as we had a shape that was more aerodynamic with what would have appeared to have been a shape that would have raised your center of gravity.
yeah, because I mean, previously, I mean, with say carbon crowns or wherever you're kind of putting it, a lot of times the kind of the shelf or whatever you have to actually bond the carbon to, you don't get quite the weight reduction that you were hoping for. Like you were hoping, the carbon piece looks really big, but then when you figure out, well, there's this little ledge and this, and you got to put all of a sudden a lot of that weight goes away. So like you said, having that ability to actually still find some weight there to shave off has to be huge because every gram is important. I mean, every gram, when you talk to engineers out there, when you're looking at a driver head, you only have so many. Like you've got, call it 200 around, like that's it. Like you don't get any more, you don't get any, less. So, when you guys are figuring that out, every bit of that little bit, it has to help.
Does. So that was a big unlock for us. It was honestly one that we weren't sure we were going to be able to do. We were, putting that technology together, and knew it was going to be important, but weren't sure we were going to be able to get enough capacity in time. So our team did an awesome job. We had an engineering team that really kind of camped out overseas and very supportive vendor partners who made some significant investments. We built an automated line and a new process on this thing to get it stood up because we knew it was that linchpin for the construction and our way of getting the faster shape, but with a lower CG and lower spin. So a nice job from the Callaway engineering team there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And like I say, I mean, you can design anything in the world, but if you can't manufacture it, you can design the best thing in the world, but if you can't manufacture, can't do it at scale. I mean, that's the other thing too. I mean, you think about like, okay, you can produce a one-off that may be precise and whatever, but you can't make just one. There's a lot of golfers out there. You got to make a lot of drivers. So being able to make every one, exactly the same, like it's got to be crazy difficult. So to pull it off is pretty cool to see.
That consistency was critical when we talk about the airflow over our crowns. Any of these little consistencies, that are 1/1000th of an inch, 2/1000ths of an inch can create an airflow separation and create drag. So for us to be able to have this part that's precisely molded, every part consistent, and yeah, to your point, we're making hundreds of thousands of them. The head speed's going to be there on all of them. We're not making any compromises because of us going in and having to clean any edges up or anything like that. So. So nice bit of technology there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, a ton of talk. I mean, a ton of tech. I mean, you think about we've gone this long and we haven't even talked about any of the actual models yet. So I mean, but that's what's cool though. I mean, you look at even from year to year, how much changes and how much technology goes into it. And I've always been one of the people when I talk about I don't think there's a sport that has more money into R&D and technology or whatever than golf. Like I just can't think of one. I mean, some people say like, oh, look at a road bike, and I'm like, yeah, but no, like they're talking about big frames, all this stuff. Like this is a golf club. Like, it has to fit in a box. It has to follow these rules. And the way that engineers like you and your team are, have the ability to make these changes and do these things is always amazing to me. I love hearing these stories.
Cool.
So we'll get into it. Let's get into it. We'll start with the Elyte drivers. We'll kind of like go through the line just a little bit about each one, kind of who they're for, and we'll start with I guess we always call it like kind of the Elyte, the kind of the standard offering in a sense. I know that's a bad way to kind of label it because it's not really standard, but the Elyte driver is out there. It looks like kind of got rid of the weight track compared to last year's Max. Yes. Just kind of 3 interchangeable spots, but give us a little on Elyte and kind of what it's all about, and then maybe kind of the golfer who might fit into that kind of that head.
Yeah, I think it's a model that we're very confident in because it does have that improved speed and forgiveness. So it's not about do you want speed or do you want forgiveness. This is going to be, we think, clearly the best all-around driver in the market. It's generally pretty neutral. It's very fast. We do have the adjustability you mentioned, and we moved away from that slider track. We still have the same amount of CG bias throw there, but by putting it in discrete locations, we were able to be more mass efficient. We were able to have that weight up on the perimeter, keep high MOI, so kind of fit with the objectives for the product. But a very versatile product, so you've got plenty of bias adjustability. You've still got hosel adjustability. This is a driver that's going to fit a majority of golfers out there. And then we kind of have the other two ends, right? So we have our triple diamond, which has continued to be the winningest driver on tour. It's a recipe that we didn't want to mess with too much. Still a full carbon chassis, a little smaller head volume, but we've made this more accessible for more golfers. I think while it will continue to be our leading tour driver and really the leading tour driver out there, we've made it more forgiving. That's the biggest thing we saw with the AI 10X face. Off-center impacts are testing really, really straight. We actually had to call in our tour staff pretty quickly when we had the parts in because we wanted to make sure we didn't make it too straight. We wanted to make sure we worked the ball. A lot of players that are playing triple diamond are hitting a cut, but it's less fade bias. We don't see as much right in it for consumers. And what we're seeing is tour players don't really miss their impact locations that much. More of their misses come from timing, closure, face to path. So players that are putting a cut swing are still going to cut this driver. But players who are accidentally missing the face are not going to see as much side spin. So a really fast, really long, and really more consistent driver that I think is going to fit even more players out there who want low spin and maybe like that head shape and maybe like the sound and feel of a carbon chassis, but much more forgiving. So there's not a trade-off there like there has been in the past.
And with that one too, the triple diamond. I mean, one, we still keep the 2 movable weights like we've kind of had since the old Sub-Zero days, to kind of be able to dial it in. But also, interesting enough, little different look on this one when you look at triple diamond compared to the rest of the line. Kind of gloss black crown. There's you don't see any of the Thermo-forged carbon on there. It's just kind of all painted. What went into that? Was that kind of like a tour thing where people wanted to see a more
tour-led decision? We still have this Thermo-forged carbon crown there, but we do paint gloss over it. The PGA Tour, you've got gloss black crowns in Titleist, and Titleist has been a leader in counts on tour. So goal for us is to be number one in non-paid users, right, on tour. And so we're looking for conversions. We want to make it an easy switch for folks. And today, our carbon fiber crown versus a gloss black crown are so different that can be a stumbling block for players. So keeping it real clean, keeping it glossy black is something that helps us just really fit in and appeal to some golfers that may be converting from another brand, and that's what we want.
Yeah, and I was looking at. I got to hit this when I was out at Callaway a couple weeks ago. I was fortunate to go hang out at ECPC for a while, and I do have to say I'm always impressed with that driver. Like you said, I mean, I'm that barely single digit. I'm above at the moment, but I fluctuate, and it's like I could hit that driver. And it was, when you set it down at first, you might be like, ooh, this might be a little demanding just because it does have a little more compact shape. But once you actually start hitting it, you realize that, oh, that wasn't a great swing. And wow, that ball went actually straight. Like it actually went straight. It actually stayed in the air. And, those type of things that you typically think of like a tour, design driver that you don't get, you do get out of that head, which is really nice. So, and then, like you said, on the kind of the other end of the spectrum, we've got the Elyte X, which I think it was funny because, I don't know if it's directly replacing kind of the Max D from, AI Smoke, but I know that at the end of the year kind of had like a little bit of a takeoff. People started realizing, even though it was, quote unquote a draw driver, like even draw players could find some speed and it was forgiving. And a lot of people were starting to kind of accept that as, man, this is a really good head. So yeah, with the X, what are we seeing with the X driver?
Yeah, yeah, it was a product that was quite well reviewed, I think, out there in with fitters and media. And I think the key was it did have head speed, right? It was a fast
Yep.
driver and easy to turn over and forgiving. So I think we've really built on that going to Elite X. It continues to be, a high launch, easier to turn over model. There's more, kind of more of a left bias in there. But what we did with our CG and our weighting system was we really straddled the Max D product. So we have a weight position that's kind of a neutral back position, and that product will play maybe a couple yards right of the Max D, so a touch more neutral. But when we put the weight into the heel, it's really a sellout for draw bias. And our testing showed it was about 8 yards left of the Max D. So, a slice killer, a full-on draw model. And for us, those are two nice positions to have with that product. So you have kind of everything that was great about Max D is still there with weight in the neutral setting, but we've given even more draw bias for players who want to really be able to turn it over or really try to eliminate that slice. And it's still just as fast as our Elyte standard. So we did kind of the same things with head shape, and we're able to control bias with internal weighting, as well as the external weighting to get the kind of shot shape and trajectories that we wanted to have. So should be a great product. And, again, kind of fit a lot of golfers.
Yeah, and the other thing I like about it too is that it's not like just crazy shut. Like sometimes you see some of those draw drivers, and it's like the face is like 3 or 4 degrees shut or whatever it is, and you set it down and just kind of go, I don't know. When you set that down, it just kind of looks as part of the family. Like it doesn't look crazy different, and it sits up pretty square, which I think is great for getting over the hump for some golfers. A visual thing is big, and if they set it down and it doesn't look right for that, you're going to set it down and it's going to look just like one of the other elite drivers. So I think that's a big thing on it as well.
Yeah. And touch on with you that I think is cool about this driver. I mean, so we looked hard at MOI on this driver. The industry movement to 10K had us take a very hard look at that. We actually asked the team to develop this product as a 10,000 MOI product. And the team told us, we've got a better recipe than that, and there will be trade-offs there. We'll see more spin, we'll see more of a short right miss, maybe a slower head speed. But we said we got to do it. We got to be ready. And so we came out of the gates and wound up making this part both ways. We had a 10K version and we had the Callaway recipe, right? And our recipe won out, and so that's what we're launching. We're not launching a 10K here because it didn't test better. This product beat our 10K prototype every time. So it's just a longer and more consistent carry driver. And we didn't see any dispersion benefit or any forgiveness benefit. So for us, it wasn't a theory. It wasn't, we're saying this. We did the work and we made the product, and this product, Elite X, is better. Sub 10K MOI. It's still very high. It's like a 9,300 MOI driver. So it's still high MOI, but that's all the golfer needs. And so that's where we're keeping this product.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that kind of does the same thing where it has, all of a sudden people go, I don't know if I need draw. And then, partway through the season, everybody goes, well, it's pretty good. It'll be interesting to see if it does the same thing as Max D did.
Yeah.
And then the final one in the line, which I think has kind of become, when I talk to the fitters we work with for our best driver series, it seems like, the Elite Max Fast. And it seems like this category of a little bit lighter, a little bit faster, a little easier to swing, a little higher launch. Like this has a big spot in the golf marketplace, and there's a lot of golfers who benefit from drivers built around kind of that lightweight design. So with this one here, I mean, it's kind of exciting, but yeah, give us a little detail on the Max or the Max Fast.
Construction to kind of meet those goals. So we use more carbon fiber than we do on the Elite and the Elite X. Carbon fiber in the sole helps us keep the head weights down, and just to your point, this is just giving that lighter weight package that we just see. Golfers who have seen their swing speeds decline over the years will benefit by getting the lighter overall spec package, right, including shaft and grip, deliver more head speed and get more distance.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, it was just kind of it's been interesting the past couple of years of talking to these fitters and how they're even excited about it because they're seeing those golfers who didn't have those type of clubs, they're seeing the advantage really pay off, and they're seeing these people hit it further, and it's all about hitting it further and straighter and enjoying the game, and that's what's happening. So that kind of area where yes, it's not necessarily the Golf WRX crew, it is a very big part of golf, and I think it's pretty cool to see also that it's adjustable. Because a lot of times you see some of the lightweight stuff and it's not adjustable or anything like that. You can still adjust it just like you would any other driver, and but it's lighter weight and going to help those folks hit it a little bit further.
That's really evidence of our team kind of stepping up on the design side to say we want to give adjustability just like everywhere else. And yes, we're going to add in 6 or 7 grams and sleeves and cogs to do it, and we got to solve that problem. And we want to do it and launch it at the same time with the rest of the line. And you've seen us in the past come out with lightweight specs, 6 or 7 months later, and it just puts the golfer in a tough position, right? You want to get something that's new. You don't really want to buy later in the season right before something new might come out. And so a nice job for our team of kind of solving those technical challenges to deliver a lighter weight package with adjustability and be able to launch them with the kind of complete family all at once.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I know there's always people when that like late summer release hits, and they're like, "Oh man, if that was there, at the beginning of the year, I would have grabbed it then." But so yeah, that is pretty nice to have it all come out the same. So yeah, so that's the Elyte driver line. Like a ton there. I know we've gone a while, but I still want to jump into some fairway woods because I think there's some cool stuff going on with fairways that you guys did as well. So in the fairway line, is it kind of like driver, same thing? I mean, you're kind of working towards specific goals, you're kind of taking what you knew and did well, and then kind of making it better and finding kind of new ways to do things.
Yeah, same approach around how do we make the fairway woods specifically better, but not just a follow on to the driver. In fact, very, very different.
Yeah.
And that's what we're excited about for the full Elyte line. Each product has its own unique kind of way of being better for that kind of segment. And the fairway wood, there's 2 specific things that we saw. And again, we had great momentum, right? Number 1 fairway building, I think 2 years running, maybe 3, but we've had really good momentum. So, when you talk about like, let's not stop, let's talk about how to make these products better. And the 2 things we saw, and one of them what really came from all that swing data that we had. We just had so much impact location data, and you see golfers on fairway woods with a very, very low impact location. Like we're talking about a 1/4 inch below the center of the face on average across all these shots. And so we said we needed to do 2 things. We needed to find more ball speed low on the face because that's where people hit it, and we need to find a way to help them hit it higher on the face. 2 different technology paths that came together beautifully. The first was our tungsten floating wave. And so what we did was we looked at what we've done in the past. We've put tungsten down there low, and we've tried to keep CG low and forward on the fairway woods, really good for spin and for speed. But it provides a stiffening factor by having a bunch of mass, or whether it's cast in or whether it's the bolted in tungsten, you have it low on the face, it's kind of right behind the face cup. And so the theory from our team was we need to lift that. We need to remove that off of the sole. And so we've basically fastened in this tungsten wave. You'll see the threads coming in from the sole of our fairway woods, but it allows the mass to be low and forward, but not stiffen the sole at all. So it's removed from the sole, and it allows that face to freely flex and get more deflection and more ball speed on these low center strikes. So more speed where it matters, low on the face. We've used twice the amount of tungsten. It's about 30-gram weight there versus about 15 on last year's version. But we haven't compromised on the overall mass property package. So even as we've moved that weight more low and forward, because we had the second feature called the step sole. And the step sole was a feature that was inspired by development with Tour on the Apex utility wood. Apex utility wood was this really unique project where we just went and worked with Tour on what they wanted to get out of launch and spin and turf interaction. And the team brought that into the fairway wood plan this year and talked about eliminating more sole contact area. So it's something like 57% less sole contact area than our previous fairway. And what it's doing is it's allowing golfers to get down into the turf without skipping, without bouncing. As a golfer delivers a fairway wood, you see dynamic loft and lie, or maybe they're hitting a little behind the ball. You maybe see the face grab. Removing all that sole area allows us to get really good, clean contact. It's almost like an iron turf interaction effect that we play now. And so that's on its own, that's allowing us to get impact locations up the face. In our testing, we saw about 25% improvement on impact locations moving above that kind of quarter-inch below the face line. So we're helping golfers hit the ball higher on the face, better contact, and getting more speed low on the face when they do hit it there. And those two things are able to kind of live and coexist. Even as we pull weight forward on the tungsten wave, the speed step sole offsets that. And so we have, we've really kept our CG in a fundamentally neutral position from the smoke product. So no change in feel or closure rate or forgiveness. Just an improvement in total MOI, and improvement in better contact and better strikes. And it was really kind of the darling on the range as we were having people come in and hit, because fairway woods are so hard to hit off the deck. And we were seeing people like making good strikes and having fun, and seeing that these two things really worked in a harmonious way together. So it's a product we're really excited about.
Yeah, it was interesting. So when I got when I was out there, I got the presentation of it, and I was also fortunate right before I started working for Golf WRX, I was just a forum member, and in 2000, it was the end of 2012, so it was for 2013 product cycle. Myself and like I think it was 5 other members got to come out to Callaway and kind of got the showdown on X Hot at the time, and that had that standing wave in it. We always like, wow, that's kind of a cool idea, and then seeing it here again, you're just like, that looks, it's just such a modern and revised version. Like, but it kind of threw me back to like, oh yeah, I remember when X Hot had like their version, and now this new one. It's like, oh, that's really cool to see like how far it has evolved from that old, just like you said, casted, block of metal down there to now this multi-piece thing that can flex and work better. But it was really cool to see it, and it just kind of threw me back to that day.
That's cool that you've connected the dots. I mean, that product, X Hot Fairway, was a real turnaround moment for Callaway, right? It was one of the first products under our new CEO at the time, Chip Brewer, and that was that mission of, I want to have the fastest fairway wood. What do we need to do? And we came up with a kind of high strength steel face cup along with the standing wave. And this is just a testament to that Metalwoods team continuing to iterate on those ideas and say, there was something there, that there was a great benefit we had from what we got out of our CG, but how do we eliminate some of the trade-offs that we see in it currently? And that's where they basically came up with, we got to lift this thing off the sole. We want mass there, but we got to float it. How do we do that?
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see. And then the other interesting thing too, like you said, that step sole, because at first when I saw it, I was like, man, is it going to, like, when you set it down, is it going to flop around or move funny or whatever? And it doesn't. When you get it out in the range, you set it down, it just, I mean, you don't even know in a sense that it's there, just, dropping it. The club stays square. But when you look at it, just in the rack, you kind of go, ooh, is it going to, just sit funny? And it doesn't. So, I mean, you guys had to kind of, take that into account as well when kind of making that step sole.
Totally right. Yeah. And make it work with the overall industrial design of the product, right? And it's putting that feature there, we knew was going to be difficult to do and have the whole line still look clean, but we believed in it so much from our testing that we just challenged the team on, we got to have that feature. We got to have it in there. How do we do that and still make it look really appealing on the rack? And I think they've accomplished that goal. It's a product that looks very cool, very technical. I think definitely gives golfers a reason to want to pick it up off the rack and check it out. And that's what we want.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can kind of that visible tech, I think it's very cool, because not only do you have the story, but then you can kind of look and touch and feel it and go, oh yeah, there it is. And so often, you hear of these technologies, but they're all hidden inside, and you don't get to see it. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess it's there. That's great. But yeah, being able to, like you said, see it and go, oh yeah, like this is how it's going to work is very cool. And like you said, that Apex utility, I know with the Golf WRX crowd, that was, that original one was in so many bags and so many people loved it. And it was one of those that it just played so well for, at that time, like kind of the better player. Yeah. And it just worked really well. And to see, some of that tech work into something, a few years down the road that everyone's going to play is pretty cool. And then also, yeah, like the look of it. I mean, when you look at that, you get to see the crown that kind of matches driver, kind of has a similar look to it. So everything flows well. But I think the shaping's really nice on the new fairways as well. But it's cool to see that, the fairways have such a big jump, I feel like, from last year to this year in terms of how much tech is just poured into these things.
You touched on, for us, a great relationship with our tour staff and our tour support team, and they're a big part of our designs. And hearing what works for the best players in the world, and then having the R&D team talk about how do you apply that to average golfers, right? A lot of them are things that help the best players in the world, also help average consumers. In some cases, you have to reimagine them, but this is a case of, what they identified in turf interaction directly benefits the core market. And we see some of that, leaking into our iron line now. We have kind of a new sole grind on
Yeah.
there, the tri-sole design. That's something that came from Tour, from them working with us on how we do the soles of our core irons and making what they've learned accessible to everybody. So it's a nice thing that we have going here at Callaway, the ability to kind of learn from them and apply those learnings into our product line.
Yeah, and then the product line, kind of very similar to driver in a sense. If you look at it, Elyte is kind of the core model, going to fit a wide range of golfers. We'll probably see some of these on tour. We're going to see them in amateur bags everywhere. I mean, I feel like that one's going to be the one that'll fit, pretty much almost every golfer out there, or at least, have a chance. And then the same thing is, you got the Elyte X, which again, is that going to be similar to the driver where you're going to see a little bit more draw bias, or is it a little bit more neutral? How does it work in fairway woods?
Version we're really trying to get additional launch, a little bit more of a left bias in it. It's one that we want the player to absolutely, anybody who needs to fight a slice on a fairway wood wants to try the Elyte X. And again, same technology, same AI face approach, but helping somebody who might be inclined to deliver that fairway a little bit more down and across, face open to path. So something that's a bit of a slice killer and something that's going to add launch.
Yep, and then of course triple diamond, which we see kind of in that step. We see in a little additional weight there. Same thing. Are we kind of pushing a little bit weight forward, trying to kind of take a little spin off, or what's with the triple diamond kind of being a slightly different design?
Giving that player who's definitely in some kind of a fitting experience or protocol, the ability to really dial in both head weights and CG location. So for us, it's that last lever that we can use with our tour staff. And really dial in those head weights to their build specs. So kind of one last little tool that the player can have.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, that is the Elyte driver and fairway line, which is it's exciting. It's going to be really cool to see as people start to experience these and get them in their hands and work with their fitters and all that. It's going to be really exciting to see what people end up putting in their bag. So. I appreciate all the time, Brian, but if I have to end it, I always do with, kind of what's in your bag. So driver fairway, I know you work in the golf industry, so the amount of golf you play is unfortunately less than probably people really think you do. But what Elyte driver, what Elyte fairways are in the bag for you?
Cool. Yeah, so I am a 10 handicapper, which is embarrassing for me to admit as the head of R&D, but I'm in the office more than I'm playing golf. But so I'm actually playing the triple diamond, and this to me is a testament to the forgiveness. I'm somebody who's a high speed and high launcher of the ball, and I fight high spin. And I am a 10 handicapper because I'm inclined to wipe one out either way off the course during a round. And what I found, I actually went to triple diamond using the AI smoke this past year because it became forgiving enough for me to keep those balls in play and take advantage of the speed and the low spin. And it gave me long tee shots that I was proud of that I could keep in play. And so absolutely going to the Elyte Triple Diamond this year, that increased forgiveness for me is going to be tremendously valuable, help me hit long drives that I'll be crowing over with my buddies. And then I have a very different approach on fairways. So I'll be playing the Elyte X fairway. And that's because for me, I want to be able to hit a fairway with a big high draw. I'll use it if I have a dog leg left. That's a club I can trust to turn over and kind of wrap around the corner more so than the driver. So they're very different products, but I think it shows how, really we've got a lineup that can be right for everybody. It's not always that you follow from one to the other. I'm in really kind of both extremes because those are the products that are right for me.
Yeah. And honestly, it all comes down to what helps you score better. Like you said, you have a reason for having one and a reason for having the other, and it's not a bad thing that you mix and match. It's probably better because I'm similar. I like something that launches off the deck on a fairway real easy, but like you a little bit, I can get a little high spin. I tend to hit things low on the face, so I tend to graduate towards the lower spinning driver. So I know what you mean. But Brian Williams, Callaway Golf, thank you so much for breaking down everything about Elyte. It's amazing how much tech is in all the brand new stuff, and we appreciate you taking the time to fill us all in.
Yeah, it was great to be here. I love talking about the product. We're excited about it, and thanks for giving us the time.
Yeah.